To my dear friends Francesco Rutelli and Gianni Vernetti, thank you for providing me with this opportunity to address the second meeting of the Alliance of Democrats. My sincere apologies for not being able to join you and your distinguished guests for today's and tomorrow's important discussions. Unfortunately, my obligations to the U.S.-India climate dialogue prevent me from joining you on this occasion, so while this message is being recorded in Washington, D.C., my best wishes are also being sent to you in person from Delhi, India. We at the Center for American Progress have been honored to participate in the meetings of the Alliance in the past, and I very much hope we can continue to work together in the future. Collaboration between Democrats and progressives is more important than ever. That's because the world has shrunk enormously over the course of a few short decades. Although we see this clearly when it comes to the global economy, the international community's deeper connectedness has also radically changed the issues that rest under the umbrella of what we call national security. The very definition of national security has evolved to include challenges that extend far beyond any nation's immediate borders. In the 21st century, terrorism, rogue regimes and failed states, nuclear proliferation, climate change, poverty, and disease have replaced wars between major powers as the greatest threat to international peace and domestic security. Several years ago, the Center for American Progress decided to try and redefine how we understood foreign and security policy. This was in part a reaction to the toll the Bush years were taking on America's global leadership. Neoconservative, national security strategies under President Bush substituted unilateralism and militarism as the sole antidote to the new security threats. Not only did America's standing in the world suffer because of it, countless opportunities to help create a safer, more peaceful world were lost. I believe the U.S. and our partners around the world should take advantage of the full range of our power, something we at CAP have come to call sustainable security. This concept recognizes both the interdependence of this century's challenges, like nuclear proliferation, terrorism, but also poverty, education, and climate change, and the interdependence amongst countries around the world if we are to meet them and build a fairer, more prosperous society. It recognizes that we must advance the security of all people, some of whom face tangible threats from war and violence, and others who are simply trying to seek basic opportunities so they can provide for themselves and their families. So it was especially heartening to hear President Obama lay out a vision of American foreign policy built on the foundations of sustainable security in speeches last week at the Millennium Development Goals Summit and before the United Nations General Assembly. He announced the first ever U.S. global development policy that will go beyond financial assistance to help nations grow and develop rather than merely manage the conditions of poverty. This approach utilizes the lessons from countries that have made it from poverty to prosperity and focuses on four key factors for sustainable economic growth: investing in infrastructure, expanding trade, encouraging indigenous entrepreneurship, and welcoming investment. Sustainable security is a long-term vision that we can begin pursuing right now. But there are also immediate security challenges I want to touch on quickly in my time with you today. Two of them, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, faced the president as soon as he entered the Oval Office. Today, he has kept his commitment to withdrawing combat forces from Iraq and refocused attention in Afghanistan towards al-Qaeda and its terrorist affiliate networks. But President Obama has also re-engaged with the world on a broader range of security questions. He negotiated an arms control treaty with Russia, marshaled the international community to pressure Iran to give up its nuclear weapons and its nuclear weapons program, and restarted direct talks between the Israelis and the Palestinians. A few words on these last two issues. The Bush administration's tough talk towards Iran masked a policy of what I would call passive appeasement that allowed the Iranians to proceed towards its nuclear objectives while a divided international community stood by. Now the situation is much different, with the international community united in imposing serious sanctions targeting the Iranian regime and the Revolutionary Guard. The sanctions are beginning to change the cost-benefit analysis of the regime, and while our expectations must be realistic, China and Russia's support for sanctions should bring real pressure on the regime to give up its weapons program. And the pressure is starting to show. President Obama has also coaxed Israel back to the negotiating table with the Palestinians in direct talks at this critical juncture for both countries. With the freeze on Israeli settlement construction having just expired, it may be a risky time to forge ahead with such a delicate process. But the status quo is unsustainable, and I think we should all remember that there will never be an easy moment to start Middle East peace talks. At the beginning of the second decade of the 21st century, the world finds itself at a pivot point. Just as the Obama administration is transitioning from the crises it inherited to a foreign policy more of its choosing, the world must shift its approach to global affairs away from the pursuit of narrow self-interest and towards a broader vision of security that incorporates the well-being of all the world's peoples. I hope we can all work together to do our part to make that happen. Thank you for listening. I wish you well. I look forward to working together on our common challenges in the future. Thank you, and thank you for letting me participate.